Everybody has too many baseball caps, and we get asked all the time, can you use a baseball cap in a t-shirt quilt? And our answer is yes, we can. What we're going to do is we're going to use this part, and we're going to use this part on the back, and we're going to kind of treat them like a patch. So what I need to do is start by taking off the bill. And you need to be careful. I use a box cutter. And what you're going to do is you're going to put your box cutter right between the bill and the seam right there. And you're just going to gently cut, and it's going to take those stitches out for you. You want to be careful not to cut your hand. You don't want to cut the text. You just want to gently cut right along there. Then you have your bill off. Now you have this piece that you're ready to cut out. First, I'm going to cut just to flatten it out a little bit so it's easier to work with. And then again, I can cut the 34 off the back. So this you can get rid of. So now I have this logo right here, and I'm going to take this logo and turn it into a patch. So first, take my rotary cutter, and I'm not going to try to make this a 4x4. I'm just going to clean this up around the logo. So I'm going to cut there, and then I'm just going to straighten up the bottom. And then I'm going to straighten up the side. It's your choice if you want to leave the holes in it or not. Some people like the holes, some people don't. I'm going to cut right below the holes on this one. All right, so those vent holes are off. All right, so after I have this patch off, I want to put it on to another piece. I'm going to probably put it onto a 4x4. So I'm going to cut my 4x4 out. All right, so there's my 4x4. And now I take my glue and I'm going to glue this down. Don't really want to glue myself, so I'm going to be really careful with where I glue. So I'm just going to, doesn't take a lot of glue. This is your 505 glue. So then I take my patch, place it on my 4x4. It's attached. And then my next step will be to zigzag around the outside of the patch. All right, here's the back of the hat. We had to unhook this and open it up. So we also have its 4x4. So I'm going to clean up the cutting on this. Basically, I'm just squaring it up so that when I put it on the patch, it looks decent. I'm going to spray glue this down, and I'm going to attach it to its 4x4, and then I'll stitch around it. You will definitely run into tank tops, and tank tops are great to use. I usually start by flipping it over on the back if there's nothing on the back, and then I cut it open. I cut this so it flops open, and then if there's nothing on the back, I'll fold it, run my rotary cutter down, and now I can open it way up. I can see what I'm doing. So now I can put my different templates on it. An 8x8 is just too small. So I'm going to go up to a 12x12. When I go up to a 12x12, you notice there's lots of areas that do not have any fabric. That's okay. Begin by just cutting it out, pretending there is fabric. Next, you will take a blank block. You could use any color you want. You could use the same color as the backing. You could use a green or teal. We've got a gray one here. So we're going to take our tank top and we're going to simply pin it on to our backing block. Line up the corners. Shake it out a little bit. Next, I'm going to come here and line it up. And give myself a couple pins. That way it will stay still until I'm ready to sew it. When I'm ready to sew, I'm going to sew right along there. And you won't even notice the seam. And that's how you use a tank top. Sometimes you're going to get blocks that have already been cut. Someone thought they could make their own quilt and started to cut them. Well, it's not going to fit in your block size. You've got missing material here. And again, this is just a neckline. It's not too bad. All you have to do is fill in here. Of course, you're not going to have that design, so you just have to fill in with blank material. So on this one, simply start like this and cut it out. And then you simply need to find some matching yellow. Some yellow that matches that pretty good. And you can just cut yourself a blank block and you'll attach this to the blank block. That's not too bad of one. We have other ones that come to us much worse. Sometimes the blank blocks come to you pretty bad. Cut really close, there's not much you can do. It just is messed up all the way around. What we end up usually doing on these is cleaning up the edges. Then after we've cleaned up the edges, we'll take a blank block. You can use matching colors, you can use contrasting colors, and then we'll glue that down. And then we will cut the block so it fits. And then this block will get zigzagged right along here and right along there. You don't have to limit yourself to just t-shirts. You can also use a scarf in a quilt. This scarf is probably a polyester scarf, and there's a number of different ways you can do that. You can fold the scarf into an interesting arrangement and sew it down. So you'd sew right here, and then you'd sew along in there, and that would give you a block with a scarf. Or if you didn't want such a big block, you could take a smaller block and you can just use a corner of the scarf. So you could set the scarf right there, and then you would cut out your scarf. And you could have it right on the corner. If you didn't like quite how that fit, you could pull it back and give yourself more room, and then recut it. So how much margin you give yourself along the edge of the scarf is totally up to you. So I would pin this scarf down. And then when I go to the sewing machine, I will sew in the same color thread right along there. And that's how I'll use a scarf in a quilt. We can even use a towel in a quilt. The really tricky thing about towels is that they tend to shred and shed and just become a mess. But there's a trick to this. So if you're going to cut your towel, first, they don't like to cut very well. But you're going to notice that they're going to shred and get nasty and fall apart on you. One of the things that we do when we cut a towel is we use our fray check. And we take the fray check and we will fray check just right along the edge of the towel. Just a nice thin line of fray check. What that'll do is keep the towel from shredding and getting everywhere as you work and when you put it in the quilt, it won't come undone. So just a little bit of fray check right along the edge to keep the towel from fraying. You can even use boxer shorts in a t-shirt quilt. To use a pair of boxer shorts, you have two different methods you can choose. You can just grab a small piece of fabric from them, and that way they don't scream boxer shorts. But if you want them to scream boxer shorts, what you're going to do is you're going to take a block and you're going to cut it so that you keep the waistband intact. And when I cut it, I also want to watch that I'm not cutting over the strings. So all I do is cut. Take my template off. Now I have a little piece. Sometimes I get caught. So I'll take this piece and I will take a blank block and I will attach the boxer shorts to the blank blocks. Of course, we have way too much here, so let's make this a little bit smaller blank block. So we'll go like that. Then you'll simply pin your four corners, and when you go to sew, you can sew along here, or you can sew along the top. It's up to you. That's how you use boxer shorts. This shirt here, the customer only wants the heart used. They don't want the rest of the shirt used. So how do you do that? The heart is probably going to not fit in your template. You're going to cut off the heart. So you're going to have to edit this heart out of the shirt. So my customer put tape on this, so I'm going to pull their tape off. And there's the heart they want used. So I'm going to take my template and I'm going to cut here, and then I'm going to cut right on top of that, and then I'm going to cut here, there. All right, so there's the heart she wanted to use. So what I'm going to do is I am going to spray the back of this heart with my glue. Just a little bit will do you. I'm going to take it and bring it back down further onto the t-shirt, flatten it out, and then I'm going to line up my template with the heart. I'm not going to look at where I've cut it. I'm just going to line the template up there. And there's my block. All I have to do is zigzag around it, and I have my edited block. You're probably going to run into some of these very stretchy t-shirts. If you don't back them, you're going to have a mess when it comes to sewing. So this is how you back them so it doesn't stretch out of shape when you're actually working with it in the sewing. So first, I'm going to cut the shoulders open, and then I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to cut up the back. By doing that, I can open up the entire shirt, and you can see how much this can stretch. So you wouldn't want to be sewing that in without it backed and stabilized. But we're not going to use any iron-on stabilizer. This is our trick. So we start with a box, and we put the shirt over the box, and we pull out our trusty 505 glue. And then I'm going to spray Tinkerbell down here. Nice smelling glue. So next we get a shirt that we're going to back it with. So we're going to back it with this shirt. This takes two people and it is a challenge. So Faye's going to come help me, and we're each going to grab it, turn it over, and now start in the middle. Pull your way. There we go. Set her down. All right, so now Tinkerbell is flattened out. I want to watch and make sure I don't have any lumps and bumps, and I do have a lump right there. So I want to make sure that this is not lumpy. I want it nice and smooth there. So now I can take a template and I can go in and cut. So before I had her stretched out, she fit on this size template. Look how much more is stretched when we stretched it out. So now we're going to cut Tinkerbell out. Okay, pull that out. So there's Tinkerbell backed. Now I like to put a few pins in this because sometimes the glue will dry out between the time you sew and the time you've cut. So I'll put a couple pins in this. And then you'll also want to sew right along here and here. So please don't ever try to sew a stretchy shirt in without having glued and backed it with another piece of t-shirt material. You'll have a miserable time. So there's Tinkerbell ready to go in. You're going to come across a lot of t-shirts that have holes in them. Some holes will be very large and very noticeable. Other holes will be small. But the process with holes is the same whether it's big or small. Basically, you want to put another t-shirt behind this t-shirt. And if there's nothing on the back, one of the things you can do to kind of cheat is you can cut out straight through the back So I've cut him out, but I've also left him back with the back of his own shirt. So I didn't actually have to cut another block. I don't have to line up blocks. I simply have to pin these two blocks together, and those holes are fixed. So the next question with holes is, when do you zigzag them? When do you not zigzag them? We usually use a nickel to a quarter. If they're this big or a little bit bigger, we definitely want to zigzag around them. If they're fairly small and unobtrusive, then we simply will glue around them with a little bit of fray check. The fray check here will keep the hole from expanding. So just take fray check, glue right around the holes. This one we may zigzag down because it's pretty ragged and pretty big, and it'd be an easy one to sew down. This one right here is just too small, so we would just leave it, but we would definitely glue it. And once you've glued it, it's not going to get any bigger. That's how we handle holes. This sweatshirt has a zipper, strings, and a pocket. So we can choose how much or how little of this we want to put into the quilt. I'm thinking I want to put the logo, I want to put the strings, and I want to put the pockets into the quilt. So this is how we do it. Lay this out flat. I checked there's nothing on the back of the shirt. And I've got my template. I'm keeping my template above the ribbing, and it is got to be just a little bit above the top of the zipper. Because if I don't go past the top of the zipper may come off. The zipper may come off at the bottom, and we'll have to watch for that as we get going. So I line up my template. It's above the zipper, it's above the ribbing. So I'm going to cut. And this is one of those difficult seams where you might want to use your scissors. So I'm going to mark with my Sharpie. I'm going to cut out part of the rest of it. So I'm going to turn it this way. Cut down the other arm. So now I've got to cut across this zipper area, and I need to cut across the top area. So I've marked the top area, and I'm going to be above the zipper. So I'm going to cut right across the top. I want to make sure that I have at least 1/4 inch above the top of the zipper. And then I want the strings too. So those strings, I'm just going to pull them out. If you cut the center of the hood, you can pull the strings right off. Now we need to cut across the bottom. Now we're not going to go beyond the bottom of the zipper. So this one, we're going to be able to cut part way with our cutter. And then we're going to need to mark the rest of the way with our pin. Now I would suggest you use your oldest, most dead scissors to cut the zipper because it will ruin your good scissors. So we have this ancient scissors that we use just for zippers. Not only do you have a zipper, you also have a very thick area here too. All right, so let's pull off this piece. So we have the pockets, we have the zipper, we have the top of the zipper. I have the strings I'm going to attach back on. But if I pull the zipper down, my zipper will go flying off, and then these two pieces are going to be separated. So I've got to make sure that this does not come apart while I'm handling it and sewing it into the quilt. So I'm going to pin across the bottom here. That way, if the zipper gets pulled down, it's going to hit the pin and stop and not fly open. So now you can use the zipper a little bit. So this is one of those blocks that you're definitely going to want to back. And you're going to want to take your strings and you're going to want to pin the seams into the seam allowance. And you back the shirt, and that's all you have to it. This is one that you do not want to put on the top. You don't want to put on the top, you don't want to put on the bottom. I probably wouldn't even put it on the side of your quilt. I would put this inside the center of the quilt. So this is how you use a sweatshirt that has a pocket, strings, and a zipper. Grab your calculator. In the next couple of videos, we're going to be laying out your quilt, and it's very important that we're accurate.